Hi everybody, and thank you for watching another low-key guitar lessons video. Today's video is about soloing through repetition and variation. And we'll be looking at Jerry Garcia, the lead guitarist for the Grateful Dead, and Gary Burton, the legendary jazz vibraphonist. Our goals? We want to understand how some professional musicians use repetition in their solos by building on the melody and chord tones to remind the listener of the song they're hearing. And we want to understand how some professional musicians use variation in their solos by adding additional notes, changing octaves, and changing rhythms to make their solos interesting to the listener. Jerry Garcia was the lead guitarist, singer, and songwriter from 1960 to 1995. He performed with the Grateful Dead from 1965 to 1995, as well as many different solo projects and collaborations. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994, and his music and soloing style continues to influence musicians to this day. When asked about soloing, he said, "It keeps on changing, but I don't have an approach. I still basically revolve around the melody. I think I come more from the point of view of the melody and the way it's broken up into phrases as I perceive them. With most solos, I tend to play something that phrases the way the melody does. The phrases may be more dense or have different value and so forth, but they'll occur in the same places in the song as they do in the melody. Basically, most of the time, there's some abstraction of the melody in there. At least that's what I'm thinking. I'm not necessarily meaning to communicate that, but that's what my mind does." So let's take a second and listen to Jerry Garcia in the Jerry Garcia Band soloing over the song "I Second That Emotion" in 1990. Okay, so we can see here Jerry's solo incorporated many of the melody notes and chord tones that clearly reminds the listener of the melody to "I Second That Emotion." But he also adds notes to the melody and chord tones to create variation that keeps the listener interested. And he changes octaves to emphasize phrases in his solo, building that tension that eventually gets resolved. Now, Gary Burton, he was a jazz vibraphonist, or is a jazz vibraphonist, who performed professionally from 1960 to 2017. He taught at the Berklee School of Music and received an honorary doctorate from the Berklee School of Music, and continues to give lectures and interviews to this day. He was a leader for the overwhelming majority of his extensive performing and recording career, but he's also noted for his collaborations and his work as a sideman. He has won 7 Grammy Awards in several categories, including Best Jazz Performance by a Soloist, Best Jazz Instrumental Solo, Best Improvised Jazz Solo, Best Jazz Instrumental Album, Best Jazz Instrumental Performance. And his music and soloing style continues to influence musicians to this day. When asked about soloing, Gary Burton is quoted as saying, "Even though solo improvisation is made to sound effortless and spontaneous, a great deal of skill and planning goes into a well-executed jazz solo. Similar to giving a short speech to an audience, performing a jazz solo should be structured like a story, with a beginning, middle, and end. How can a musician achieve this with their instrument? It's all about building energy and intensity of an improvisation over the course of the solo." So let's listen to Gary Burton's solo from the song "Question and Answer." It appears on the Like Minds album in 1998. Okay, so we can see here Gary Burton's solo incorporates many of the melody and chord tones that reminds the listener of the song question and answer. But he also adds to the melody and chord tones and changes the rhythm to create variation that keeps the listener interested. And he changes octaves to emphasize phrases in his solo, building tension that eventually gets resolved. So the conclusion is, even though their approaches to soloing might be different, both Jerry Garcia and Gary Burton use many of the same techniques to produce interesting solos. They use repetition and phrasing, building on the melody notes and chord tones in their solos to remind the listeners of their songs. But they also keep the listener interested by adding notes, changing octaves, and changing rhythms to build tension that eventually gets resolved. Our final thoughts. There is no one right way to approach soloing. Soloing can be more organic and spontaneous like Jerry Garcia, or more well-planned and well-executed like Gary Burton, or even a combination of both. When planning our solos, it's a good idea to keep all of these options in mind. We can be spontaneous, well-planned, or both. We can use repetition and variation. We can think about starting strong, building tension, and then resolving at the end of our solos to keep the listener interested. Thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to check out these recordings on your favorite device or your favorite streaming service. And remember to make music part of your life.